I think Morrissey has this very strange sense of humour, not a morbid sense of humour, but it's so straight, and he can say things so seriously, and yet maybe behind it all, it's quite the opposite. And I think a lot of people totally misinterpret, totally, whatever he says and things he does. People, they choose to see, yes, the Smiths as being very morbid and maudling and, you know, very northern and gloomy. And yet they're not. I mean, lots of Johnny's guitar playing is really jubilant and very celebratory. It's really beautiful. Lots of music, when I hear it, it's really uplifting.
I mean, on more than one occasion, I've actually laughed out loud at Smith's lyrics, and I don't often do that. I don't often laugh out loud at anything much. And I think that they're very funny lyrics, and I cannot understand why people assume that what they do is essentially miserable. I suppose because there are a lot of references to kind of death and pain and so forth in the lyrics, but again, it's done in the same sort of way as like books like The Loved One, you know, where it's sort of ironic, really. And I don't see them as being miserable at all. I get rather cross when people tell me they are.
You know, quite often he'd just telephone and he'd say, oh, let's meet somewhere. We used to go walking on fine, sunny afternoon to Southern Cemetery in Manchester. It was very peaceful and beautiful, but it wasn't done in any sort of morbid sense. Talking about it now seems quite strange, but at the time it seemed very natural. Or we'd go wandering in Moss Side and just, hours and days wandering, just the two of us, you know, together but very alone at the same time. It's like extremely intimate, but then extremely sort of very separate. We were always quite separate at the same time. Well, we did, you know, quite often go out. We said, let's, you know, go out tonight. And there'd be all these sort of hairdressers in wonderful clothes, and they all look so happy, and they'd be dancing and drinking. Maurice and I just sort of sat there like we're at a funeral.
I never talk to my neighbor, I'd rather not get involved.
I mean, we would follow people around, sort of like little lambs, sort of looking at them saying, oh, they're beautiful, and like we were looking through a window at somebody. He'd say, do you think they're really happy? And I'd say, well, I think so. I hope so. And he'd say, well, you know, can we ever be like that? Could I ever be like that? And of course not. No, he can never be happy. I don't think. I pray to God that one day he's happy, but, you know, it's taking a long time coming.
I've never heard him say, I love you ever in a song, or I don't like you. He never has said anything positive. It's kind of, he hides behind other people's experiences all the time. But I think that's what he's trying to say about himself each time.
How do I write those songs? I write them in a very natural way, but in a very detached way also. But not to say that I simply sit down and guess. But it is very detached, which I think is also important, because not everybody has fantastically, endlessly romping private lives, as we know.
There is a sort of ambiguity. I mean, you're never quite sure who he's singing to or who he's singing about. I mean, the genders are all very, you know, I think it's wonderful, just wonderfully vague. So therefore, whoever you are, whichever sex, I mean, you can almost listen to the songs and you can interpret them, you know, to fit your life, give them, you know, your meanings.
There's some very disturbing things going on in those lyrics. But from what I've gathered, I mean, Morrissey is very, very touchy about the whole male-female gender thing. He seems to think of things as there is a third sex, which, you know, that appears to be his belief. And it certainly works. It really works. I think, you know, things like "Handsome Devil," which is a, you know, I mean, if the Rolling Stones had done that song, they would have never gotten away with a song like that. Never. I mean, if they'd have done that, because it's, you know, I mean, it's basic homoerotic imagery.
I I wouldn't say that I sing from a staunchly male point of view. I think I have enough scope to really imagine how practically almost anybody would feel. And for me to sing in an exclusively male point of view is just very standard, really.
One doesn't have a particular sex when you sing. I mean, you've had so many lifetimes being a man or a woman or indifferent. I mean, so you can sing about all of those. But I would do it in the first person. He does it in the third.
We used to read obsessively. I mean, devouring book after book after book. I mean, it's a very essential ingredient in our lives. And most of the books we read were by women or about women, or somehow, a woman sort of popped up somewhere.
People like Sheila Delaney, I was and remain so very obsessed by. Oscar Wilde, a lot of feminist writers I was very interested in, because once again, they seem to really... they seem to have the key on very modern situations as far as relationships are concerned. They seem to be... Feminism, although one can talk about feminism and people can screw up their brow and say, and back off, I think really they have the key to many things which have unraveled themselves within recent years as very strong political topics. Not just feminism, but broader issues.
Now, don't keep me waiting. I want a drink.
You've had enough.
Look, I'm not hanging about in this filthy hole.
Wait, where you like, then?
Certainly Sheila Delaney and Alan Bennett, I see a great deal of similarity in the way they write and the view that they have. Very northern, very back garden, almost gossipy, and very entertaining.
That's his influence, I suppose. You get out of it and go back to your fancy man or your husband or whatever you call it. Ooh, I give you such a bloody good idea, and that's what you've gone short of. Don't show yourself up for what you are. You couldn't wait, could you? And now look at the mess you've got yourself into. Get out of it without your help. Threw yourself at the first man you met. Yes, you're right, you did. You're man-mad. I'm like you. You know what they're calling you round here? A silly little whore. They all know where I got it from, don't they? Oh, you bloody head off! Get on!
Each other, will you?
Oh, shut up. We enjoy it.
I can't really seem to write from a point of view that's completely detached from the solid Manchester thing and all those old bonds and all those things that perhaps I never really liked. But it's just something like, it's like your kidneys. They're just there and you have to put up with them.
Because of this constraint, especially living in Manchester where the sex roles are more, clearly defined and, the lads go, whatever, to the pub and, it's so sort of clear cut here. And if you do anything slightly different, people do notice and do talk. And, so I'm sure Marcy was well talked about.
Certain violent expressions that people have, sometimes I can really understand them, because sometimes, and certainly when you're like Arthur Seaton from a working class background, you have to be very over-expressive and you have to be overtly demonstrative in order to get anywhere or to be heard and so on.